everyone. Good morning. Thanks for joining today. It is Tuesday, January 12th in Japan, and I hope you're having a good morning wherever you are. Today we have Tyler Lynch in Nagano. Thanks so much for joining, Tyler.
Good morning.
Now, Taira-san,
Yes.
Taira is actually a great name in Japan because you have, is it Kiyomori Taira, who stopped the sun from setting so they could finish Itsukushima Shrine in Hiroshima, right? So
Ah,
people call you Taira-san, right?
right.
Which has quite a lofty image in history.
Yeah. Sometimes talking to people in Japanese and they just assume I'm Japanese with that name, but then they see me and they're like, oh, that didn't quite match what I was thinking.
Yeah. You also are very tall, I have noticed in many of the photos. So even though you're in a very traditional onsen town running an inn, you definitely stick out both physically, although you speak fluent in Japanese, from what I've heard.
Yeah, I just studied the University of Washington back in Seattle, did a good job of stuffing it into my head and living here. It There was a good opportunity to use Japanese in Seattle as well, so Uh, I struggled with it, but living here long enough, started to pick up. It's hard to get rid of the English accent. It's like English is so wavy in the tones and things. In Japanese, you got to really flatten it out, and a lot of effort went into it. Yes.
Yeah. Well done. It sounds beautiful. Whenever I've heard you, you were covered, your story, your inn was covered by NHK recently, which we will talk about, and as well as a great Japanophiles podcast where you talked about
Right.
tourism. Yeah. So looking forward to talking to you. Thanks so much for joining. So, how can you tell us a little bit of how you started running the inn? How did that begin?
Yeah. So basically, as far as my background, I born, reared, and raised in Seattle, which, as you probably know, it's a port city and has had a lot of import export with Japan. Started out with wood products and Boeing, and then shifted. It's a lot of IT and with Nintendo and Microsoft being based in Seattle. So ever since I was in high school, I worked as a part-time as a just an office assistant at a export related import related company and realized, wow, there's so many of these Japanese trading houses with offices in Seattle. It'd be good to for my future career to start learning Japanese. When I got into the University of Washington, I started studying the language, and that got me interested in the culture and the way of thinking. So I did an exchange study to Kobe, and it just opened my eyes to the fact that everything I'd taken as a universal truth back in Seattle wasn't necessarily a universal truth. Um, and after I graduated, I wanted to learn more Japanese. Best way to do that is to live in Japan. Easiest way to live in Japan is to do the English conversation teaching gig. So I came to Tokyo and sent my resume to a bunch of different places, and just so happened a school in Nagano invited me up for an interview, and got here and saw all the beautiful mountains. I'm like, wow, this is the place for me. So I did the Eikaiwa deal for about a year and a half, and met one of my students that her family runs onsen inn, and I'm like, I love onsen, so that's how we hit it off. And I took her back to Seattle, and we got married, bought a house, had our two boys, and lived there for 11 years. That was the game plan. But then the mother here wanted to retire, and she didn't have anyone to take over the inn, so she's going to tear this all down and make a parking lot. And we're like, this is gonna be such a waste. So we sold our house in Seattle and moved here 15 years ago to keep the inn going. It's an
I
ongoing process.
I heard on the podcast you were talking about. Of course, if it was like a typical concrete, simple ryokan, you never would have gone through the effort of trying to keep it going or change your life so severely. But it's such a traditional, beautiful, heritage full Ryokan inn that you thought should be preserved and continued. Is that right?
E- Exactly. The you walk into the lobby and it's a pretty spacious lobby, and you got the Nakaniwa garden with the koi pond and the passageway across the garden. And you have these kind of detached rooms, the guest rooms, and it's really it actually started out as a geisha house, and I guess the rooms off the main building were used for entertaining the guests and things. So uh, it's got it's you're right. If this were just a concrete box, and the mother's like, "Sorry, we got to tear it down," and be like, "Ah, go ahead, one less concrete box in the world." But we do have a lot of our wood buildings still left, and it's been my goal to try to keep them going. The oldest building's over 100 years old, and it's required a lot of work, but slowly but surely we're making improvements.
And I heard that you built the Rotenburo, the outdoor bath, by yourself. How is
Yeah,
that as
so
a project?
when we first got here, all we had were the two indoor baths, the men's bath and the ladies' bath. And a lot of guests would say, the onsen is great, but we really want to soak in the starlight as we take the onsen bath. And I'm like, yeah, I also really, really appreciate the outdoor baths, and we just didn't have any budget for it. And so I talked with one of my colleagues here over a few beers, and he's like, "I'll show you how to do it. I'll loan you the tools. Do it." And I did it. It was a whole lot of new experiences. I had to move a lot of dirt, bring in a lot of dirt, and one of our local construction company owners. I was going by his house one day, and he had a big pile of dirt. I asked him, I don't know, I don't suppose you could, share some of that? He's like, oh yeah, help yourself to it. I'm like, I don't suppose I could use the big backhoe there to load things up. And he's like, sure. So I got up there and already used it. And the guy that came out for the keys, like, so you know how to use this, right? It's like, oh yeah, I played with Tonka toys when I was a kid. Sure. He's like, I'll show you how to use it. So it was just one new experience after another. It was amazing. But the
So
nice thing
you,
about that, putting in that
yeah.
effort was before we made the bath, we'd get inquiries for reservations and like, oh, by the way, do you have an outdoor bath? No. But now I can say, yeah, I got an outdoor bath. I made it myself. And they're like, wow, we got to check that out. So that was a big turning point in the direction of, how many bookings we were getting. And it was worth it. Yes.
Wow, great. Yeah. So you're just learning as you went along, as you're making that and collaborating with locals on
Yeah.
know-how.
The nice thing was so many of the locals were like, I don't know, some of them were like, this guy's an idiot. We gotta show him how to do it, otherwise it's gonna create a problem. I don't know what their impetus was to help me out, but they were really kind. My Ryokan colleague, I was like, you sure you want to be helping me out? I mean, we're technically, business competitors. And he's like, no, 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 no. For our town, we need your inn to survive. Our inn needs to, do well too. We're all in this together. So uh, I don't know. Coming from Seattle, it seems like there's so much cutthroat competition and a lot of things in the business world. But here, different people have different talents, and everyone's really uh, happy to share the talents with everybody because we got to have our towns. The name of our town is Togura Kamiyama Onsen, which is way too long in English. So I'm trying to brand it as the onsen town. But we have to have people know our town before they discover any of our individual inns. So everyone has the same idea that we need to promote the town as well as our individual inns.
Definitely. And what you're doing to collaborate with local eateries and other businesses in the area and creating a regional brand. This is something I talked with Jess Hollims about in Tohoku, trying to create a Tohoku brand. So instead of thinking of other businesses in your area as rivals, if you guys band together, you can actually create more tourism appeal for your destination for visitors who will stay longer, which is the aim for the future, right?
Yeah, it's like in Nagano City, the first time a guest house opened up, backpackers opened up, I was like, oh wow, it's going to be some, competition. But turns out, instead of people coming to Nagano and staying only one night, they would stay maybe one night here and one night at the backpackers. So it was overall, it was good for the I think Nagano Prefecture as a whole. And uh, yeah, you're right. It's you got to think more wide scale for promotion efforts because people coming from overseas, uh, they don't know the geography of Japan, so it's us locals that are creating geographical boundaries, but that for people from visitors from overseas, that doesn't mean anything to them. So you really got to think on a wider scale.
Yeah. I mean, Jess brought this up as well, which is definitely true. It's also about funding, that the government funding is often area to area, business to business, whereas if you're trying to collaborate, sometimes you're competing for grants and stuff as well.
Uh,
But your latest project is very collaborative during COVID time. Can you talk to us about Onsen Eats? I love that idea.
yeah, so basically during the shutdown, the stay home time, uh, us Ryokan owners, we went to, basically zero business. So we had time on our hands. The local restaurants, a lot of them shifted towards starting takeout, but our town has one really unique thing about our town that I love is that we have over 100 restaurants and eateries, and the number of them that are national chain restaurants is zero. They're all mom and pop, individually owned places. So a place like that doesn't have the manpower to deliver any meals. Us Ryokan owners, we had the extra manpower because our inns were so quiet. So uh, we started a collaborative thing. Basically, it's similar to uh, Uber Eats. So we kind of borrowed that naming and called it Onsen Eats. One thing that I think I'm not, we don't have Uber Eats here in Nagano, so I'm not sure how it works. But one thing that we were able to do is guests could order, udon from this shop and tonkatsu from this shop and yakitori from this shop, and we would combine the orders and then deliver them. So uh, it was really popular with the people that were staying home, and we also collaborated with the local taxi company who also had lost a lot of business because of the whole stay home thing. So he had extra manpower, extra cars. So they gave us a deal on the price for delivery and nearby things. We did get a grant from the prefecture, and we got a electric powered electric assist bicycle. So we were able to do some local deliveries ourselves, and it was uh, it was all starting from scratch. So it was a big learning curve. But now that we got things in place and there's certain events that come up, or one thing we're trying to do is our town is trying to promote, like it's called locate tourism, the location for shooting movies or TV shows and stuff. And so the crew needs to eat. So, we're in a position to, we're able to combine the orders and deliver to wherever they're making their on-site locations. So it's, it was born out of kind of an emergency crisis situation, but now that we have all the fundamentals in place, we're hoping to make it as a good draw for people who want conventions or like the movie shooting and things like that we have that in place to be able to facilitate it. So it was the whole shutdown thing was really scary, but I think we made the best out of it.
Yeah. And having that kind of collaborative system in place where you're working with local restaurants and eateries, you're working with local taxi companies, you're delivering some of it yourself. You're doing so much in terms of branding for the area, in terms of keeping people collaborative and working together. And that's something that just doesn't happen enough around Japan. So it's great to see what you guys are doing. I do have a question about sustainability for all the takeout stuff. There's a lot of plastic. Have you
Ah,
have you had any like discussions about maybe reusable trays or bento boxes or I know it's
yeah,
such a hard hurdle, but
yeah, we had talked about that. The trick is then how do you go retrieve the bento boxes and things? So we couldn't figure out a workaround around that. One, some people we had, I think on the when you're taking to people's houses, you don't have to bring the chopsticks and things. So that's one thing we're able to cut back on. But yeah, the containers and things, you're right. That's an issue that we haven't been able to figure out. For what it's worth, one thing that we do is like when I deliver bentos myself, I have a big glass jar. I fill it up with our onsen water, and then take the people their bento, and then you want to pour this onsen water into your bathtub. You'll smell the sulfur for your bath tonight. So that's one thing we've been able to do that's a little more environmentally
yeah,
sound.
and added value because people like the natural onsen water, the hot spring water, which is better for your skin, better for your health, and you guys have that resource right at your
Sure.
inn. That's amazing. Yeah, I love that. I know it's a big hurdle, but I often think back to when I first came to Japan in the early 90s. And you often see restaurants delivering to people's houses on the back of the moped, bouncing up
Right,
and
right,
down,
right.
right? And it was always, this astounded me, and still I always hope we can go back to this. It was always in reusable bowls and containers. And
You're
then
right.
the staff would come back and pick it up next time they delivered, or they would come back later in the day and pick it up. So I think we have the models, even in Japan, only 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So
Right.
I know it's a big shift because plastic is so convenient and then you just throw it away and, don't worry about it. But it's such a huge problem in Japan
Yeah.
and everywhere. It'd be nice to even try something on a small scale.
I next time we gather, I'll say I my senpai Joy-san is uh, smacking me around to come up with some better ideas. So we'll work on
Just
that.
a suggestion, just soft
No, I
suggestion.
love it. I love
I
it.
mean, that's all about this seeking sustainability is right. Seeking sustainability and
Yeah.
what is possible and can we try it? Let's try it. And not to
Yeah.
kill yourself trying to make change, but if it is possible, then great, fantastic. And then it's better
Yeah.
for the region as well because you have less waste issues. You
Yes.
have a
Yes. Yes.
higher quality image of a bento in a reusable container. I mean, there's been studies like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question about
Sure.
sustainability?
Of course.
So, our town, like I mentioned, our oldest building started out as a geisha house. Our town does still have about a dozen active geisha. The average age is definitely getting up there, but for me, a lot of times the geisha, when Japanese people have a banquet, they'll call in the geisha basically for the pouring the sake and the chit-chatting. Uh, a lot of foreigners that have come through here, they're interested in the geisha as far as the entertainment, not necessarily for the sake and for they don't speak Japanese, so the chit-chatting is kind of hard. So one thing that we've done is negotiated with the geisha before that 2 hour banquet, they'll come in for a half an hour geisha show, and they'll perform a couple dances. They'll teach the guests how to do a dance. Everyone gets in a circle, and we do the bonodori dance, the obon dance. What's it called?
Digging the
Tankobushi,
ditch and throwing it over
the
your
coal
shoulder.
miners. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We actually do it in English. You go shoulder, shoulder, and then what?
Yeah,
Push,
I
push.
actually learned that when I was in elementary school in Hawaii. We
Oh
learned
yeah.
we have such an influence of Japanese culture. So
Okay.
the teachers would say dig the ditch,
Ah.
throw it over, and dig the ditch.
Ah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a
That's
really cute
basically
way.
yeah. I'll get in the circle and do that, and then we finish up with Kompira Fune Fune. It's like a Japanese drinking game. Uh, anyway, so it's a really really interactive, and
Sounds great.
it's a lot of fun. I There's a whole COVID pandemic deal. Obviously, Japanese people aren't having banquets, so this whole the geisha are really struggling, and so I had our town has this local YouTuber, and so I hooked up with him, and we had a few of the geisha come in, and we did the kompira fune fune, those drinking games. Made a short YouTube video about it, and I called our local newspaper guy, and he came and he actually put it on the front page of the next day's newspaper. But to me, for me, sustainability includes keeping the geisha culture, the geisha heritage for our
Absolutely,
town.
yeah. Heritage.
Um,
If we don't continue culture, traditional culture, you're losing quality of life, and that's definitely part of sustainability. You have to balance what's good for people, what's good for the planet, with making a profit so that it can be sustainable, right?
right.
But it during COVID is so tricky. I talked with Peter MacIntosh in Kyoto, who has
Uh-huh.
so many connections with the geisha community there in Kyoto, and he had some ideas. But man, it's such a difficult time because the whole idea of having someone pour your drinks and join you for a meal, these are things that cannot happen right now.
Right.
Maybe if you have like a central open area, like in your lobby or something, and you
Uh-huh.
could have, some guests, maybe with social distancing, they could ask questions while they perform, after they perform, or, have some kind of engagement in that way. But you're right, doing things which can be online right now is a really good transition. You talked on your podcast about doing walking tour podcasting. So you could
Ah,
definitely do some kind of podcasting or even video documenting um, the day in the life of a geisha in that area and watch them go, place to place. How do they get ready? There's definitely a series there that would be very popular on YouTube. And maybe if you used one of the subscription services, they could get some funding.
uh,
People would pay to watch that live so they could ask questions. And there's a bunch of different models you could use. We can talk
okay.
about that.
Wow.
Talk about that later if
Yeah.
you like. Yeah. That's what I can do, consulting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on. You did a really talking about tourism. You did a really interesting questionnaire a few years ago. You were talking about in the podcast, and you realize there's a big gap in understanding between what the international visitor, even in Japan, knows about your area and how you can try to kind of bridge the gap a little bit. Do you want to talk about that? That was really interesting.
Yeah, so basically, the initial impetus was there was the local bureaucracy had a committee about trying to promote for inbound tourism, and I was invited to join. And I got the feeling that most people there were just, appointed to the committee and really weren't interested. And so I made some suggestions. Basically, if we really want to try to, uh, increase the number of visitors coming, we should do some research, do a survey, and find out the people that are coming, what's their purpose for coming, what are the things they're trying to do, and see while they're here, how many days are they staying, how are they coming, are they what's their level of satisfaction, that type of thing, to kind of give us, a roadmap for how to proceed. And basically, the guys are like, "Oh, it's a great idea, but we don't have any budget for that, so no thanks." And I was like, it just ended up being a meeting for the purpose of a meeting, right? And so I complained about that to some of my buddies, and they're like, "Well, hey, why don't we do this?" So we got a little bit of a grant from Nagano City, to be able to pay for the printing and the translating of the survey, the questionnaire, and then we linked up with a local ladies' university, and the ladies were studying English, and we gave the system as a project. They would go to the big Zenkoji temple and in Nagano City and track down some tourists, and you can't say no to a cute Japanese college student. So we got that. We were able to get answers from those questionnaires. We got cooperation from a lot of the inns in the area, and then we went up to the Jigoku the Snow Monkey Park, and interviewed a bunch of people there. And I mean, just one episode from the Snow Monkey Park that really stuck with me is when there was a group of Australian skiers that were staying in Hakuba, and they'd come to the monkey park for the day. So I asked this one lady, "So where are you staying at? A hotel, a ski lodge, a ryokan?" She's like, "What's a ryokan?" Huh? It's got the tatami rooms. You get to wear the yukata. You got to eat the Japanese food, and you got the bath. Like, wow, there's places like that. It's like there's just a lack of information available. And one thing that Nagano really has to be careful about is we got the Shinkansen, the bullet train was extended to Kanazawa, and there had been people making day trips from Tokyo just to see the snow monkeys, which that in itself is like to me insane. There's so much more to Nagano than just the monkeys. And then, but now with the Shinkansen extended to Kanazawa, it's really shifted our customer base as far as the visitors from overseas. Because I think, I don't know, this might be an exaggeration, but it seems like 9 out of 10 visitors to Japan, they're going to go to Tokyo and Kyoto. And so the question is, how do you go in between those 2 points? You could just hop on the Tokaido Shinkansen and boom, you're in Kyoto in 2.5 hours. But some people want to see a bit of the countryside. So that option of taking the bullet train to Nagano and then making a side trip to see the snow monkeys and then on to Kanazawa and seeing Kanazawa, and then from there taking the Thunderbird to Kyoto, it's a really popular option. But what Nagano has to be careful about is, again, you could hop on the bullet train in Tokyo in the morning, get to Nagano mid-morning, go see the monkeys, get back to Nagano station, hop right back on the bullet train and head on to Kanazawa. So Nagano really has to be proactive in spreading the information that there's more to Nagano than just the monkeys. So we actually ended up forming an NPO. We call it Nagano Inbound to Japan Project, and the acronym is Ninja Project. And there's basically 3 main schools of ninja in Japan. There's the Iga and Koka near Nagoya, and then there's the Togakure School of Ninjutsu, which started at the Togakushi mountain area just above Nagano City. So there's still a group of people to this day that every Sunday evening they gather and continue practicing ninjutsu. So we've been really fortunate to be able to collaborate with them, and that's one thing that we're using to try to promote Nagano is there's in the wintertime there's like 2 meters of snow up there, so a lot of the facilities are shut down. But in the green season there's a couple there's a kids ninja village, and then there's a little more what do you call it, more for adults ninja house as well. We've had so many guests that have gone up there and come back. How was it? Oh, it was funner than Universal Studios. It was it's a real, people in Nagano City, I don't think they understand the value of it. But a lot of foreigners, they're interested in the whole mystique of the ninja. So being able to go up there and actually throw a shuriken, and there's like a ninja fun house where you try to walk through, figure out which wall moves and stuff, and it's a lot of fun. So Yeah, one thing that we've been doing for this winter is the Kankocho, the Japan's tourism agency, has been putting out grants for groups that hadn't been able to do different events due to the corona. So we got some seed money from that, and we're having the one of the writers for JapanGuide.com and one of the writers from Outdoor Japan come, and then some local tour guides, and we're basically going to have a. We've done it once before in the green season, but now we're going to do a winter version, a snow ninja, where we'll use the banquet room for one of the inns up there. And with this whole Corona thing, you can't do hands-on ninja techniques, but there's a lot of staff use a one really neat thing about the ninjas up at Togakushi is a ninja won't wear a sign saying "I'm a ninja." There's like one rule is at a soba shop, soba making, they have that long rolling pin. That's an excellent weapon, and so we'll use those really long rolling pins and practice using as a staff for that type of combat, so that
That's
you're at
excellent.
least a little distance from each other.
Yeah,
Um,
well, we had a great talk with Matt Alt and Hiroko Yoda, who wrote
ah,
Ninja Attack, and
okay,
they were saying actually the poet Basho
right,
might have been a ninja, and ninja actually were supposed to fade in the background. They were not supposed to be that easy to see, right? Of course, yeah. So it's about
right.
how to be stealthy and stuff. Of course, Ninja Village is super appealing, but I loved hearing that when were creating walking guided tours, you realized that it was more than just the big typical sightseeing stuff that people were interested in. That
Uh-huh.
it was about what does a normal Japanese house look like, or how is it built without nails, fitted together. How do normal mom and pop shops, how do they run on a daily basis? What kind of local products do they have? So I love that part of, I think it was in the podcast, talking about creating walking tours or cycling tours which are promoting normal stuff, and that a lot of visitors are very interested in what people are doing in Japan on the day to day.
So one of my side projects that you're mentioning is we call it Zukudashi Eco-Tours, and we do both the walking version and the cycling version. The walking version, it's exactly that. We take people into the different shops here in town, and you meet the owners and taste the products they're making, and get a feel for like the local manju, the pastries with the purple bean paste inside. They wake up every morning at 4:30 to make their manju, and just getting to meet the people that do that is really great. As far as a cycling tour, one thing that I've learned about cycling tours is the most important thing is to get out the cycle. And we'll be riding along, and there'll be a farmer working in her rice field. We'll jump into the rice field and say, "Hey, can we help?" And give people that connection with the locals, and give locals a connection with the visitors. And it's a great win-win. Last year, I guess it's been over a year now, but the Rugby World Cup, we had a great amount of visitors from overseas come for in relation to that. And one time we had these two guys from New Zealand, and we took them on I took them on the cycling tour, and we rode by this apple orchard, and the little lady goes, "Oh, Taira-san," and I had many people communicate with her in the past, and so she's really friendly with me. And anyway, so I looked at one of these guys from New Zealand and said, "Are you?" He had a kind of a darker complexion. I said, "Are you by chance Maori?" He said, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah." I said, "Do you by chance know the haka dance?" He said, "Well, of course." It's like, wow, could you like do it here? So I think it was the first time in the history of all of Japan that a real life Maori did a real life haka dance in an apple orchard. it was just the neatest thing. The apple orchard lady was she's almost in tears. She was so happy to see that. And that type of just getting people a chance to interact with just the regular lifestyle of people here in the countryside. There's that. Another thing I do is I participate in our town's local lion dance troupe, the Kagura. I know Hiroshima has a really strong Kagura tradition as well. Ours is a little more simple, a lot simpler, but usually we meet every Thursday and have a practice. Uh, and if we have guests from overseas staying, I'll invite them. We're just a group of regular people just gathering to practice the lion dance. If you're interested in coming, you want to come along. And it like we had this one lady from Cuba once that did I don't know what it is, but the Cuban traditional dancing. And so she was so excited to see the lion dance, and we gave her the lion the head to wear, and she did a little bit of it too. And so for her, I'm sure it was just made a memory of a lifetime. But for us too, I mean, if we do the same routine week in, week out, it gets kind of boring. But being able to share dancing with this lady from Cuba and seeing her reaction, it's great for us as well.
For sure. I think, and I heard you talk about this as well. What is the new normal of tourism, right? Like after COVID, especially, the kind of people who can afford to travel because costs are likely to go up.
Right.
Hopefully, will be people who are looking for more meaningful, engaging experiences. And the people who do this quick travel to see famous sites and take a quick picture and leave, hopefully that kind of tourist is going to be a lot less. And mass tourism where we're focused on numbers instead of quality, hopefully that is something of the past as well. And I think when you're creating opportunities like you're doing where people can really engage with locals, stay in an area longer, really feel the local atmosphere in many ways, those are the things people will talk about. Who
Right.
wants to see a million photos of famous places that you can see on the internet, right? If you're looking for meaningful travel, you're looking for connection, connecting to a place, connecting to people, right?
That's a big thing that you can see the famous places, but the people behind to me, that's the main purpose for to travel anywhere overseas. You're having to spend a lot of money on the airfare, and you're using your valuable vacation time. There's got to be something worthwhile to do that. And as far as from what I can see, that it's learning new points of view, learning new ways of living that you can maybe incorporate into it gives you, I don't know, like I mentioned at the beginning, that going to Kobe for the first time just opened my eyes to a whole different way of seeing things. And if you're able to go into the countryside and I mean, like, just something that really really hit me was we work with a local grape orchardist, and so during the grape season, I'll go there almost on a daily basis to get fresh grapes, and sometimes I'll take guests. And one time I went there in the evening and get there, and the sky was starting to turn really cool colors, and the orchardist looked up and said, "Oh wow, so tomorrow's weather's gonna be nice." I'm like, "Wow, I need to look at my iPhone to know what the weather is." We're just so separated from the earth. And then living here for 15 years, one thing that's really hit me is you know the way that the lion dance, the festivals, it's related to a lot of the harvest. The timing is related to thanks for the harvest and things like that. And so I mean, I was always thinking, okay, so it's this date on the calendar. When do you harvest your rice? And the guys with the rice are like, no, 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 no. We don't look on the calendar and see what day it is. There's a natural schedule with the way the rice is, you get so many days of daylight in the summertime, and then you get uh, the change in the temperatures and all that. That's what we look at. We don't look at your iPhone's calendar. It's being able to talk with these people and get into their fields, and it just gives you such a bigger connection with the earth and with the people here. And to me, that's what's worth going overseas and going into a community and learning those points of view. And uh, yeah, you can't do that just sitting on your iPhone and looking at YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk about the services and things that you offer at your Ryokan, because I think a lot of the products, services that you're offering are ways to connect the visitor to your local area through food or other experiences. In fact, on your website, you're talking about offering Zazen
Ah,
Meditation. Can
yeah.
you
So
tell us about that? That's awesome.
yeah, one of our local temples, every morning at 5 a.m., they're doing zazen. And the monk there is like, anytime you want, bring whoever you want. And that particular temple, they're training. His big thing is uh, Japanese sarariwan, the businessmen, after they've retired, they kind of a second life ahead of them. And so they're trying to promote the idea of becoming a Buddhist monk, because obviously there's a problem with the declining number of monks in Japan. So they're doing the 5 a.m. zazen on a regular basis as part of the training for the retired sarariman. So, anyways, yeah, the head monk there actually used to work at one point for a subsidiary of GE, and so he speaks really good English. And so we'll go there and do the zazen, and sometimes he'll bring the stick and whack people on on the back. And
Only
then
if they want
afterwards,
it, right? Only if they want it, right?
right.
When I first did Zazen, I didn't know about this, and
Yeah.
I was in the zone meditating, so relaxed, and then I was awakened to the sound of people being hit around me, and I had no idea that I thought I was going to be next, and so I was really nervous.
Right.
But
Be
only
pretty
if you
dramatic.
want it. Only if you want
Yes.
it and you lean forward, and then
Yes.
they'll help keep you focused is the idea,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Boom. Yeah. Um,
Uh,
yeah. And the neat thing is, after the zazen, he'll invite us in for tea, and we'll sit there for half an hour and just, people will have these concerns and you don't really have a chance to talk about it. And so it's great. Yeah. One time we had a couple from Italy that were in Japan on their honeymoon. And so I bring them every time guests come, I sit down with them in the lobby and explain about what's in the town and stuff, and answer their questions, and then take them to the room, and then pour tea and just we chit chat. And I was asking how are they uh, so far, how's their travel in Japan. They said, well, it's great, but one thing that we can't figure out is we go to all these big temples and shrines, and for us it's the spirituality, it's really impressive, and the architecture and things. um, but you look at the other Japanese people around us, they're just going up, throwing a few coins in the collection box, and then clapping, and then going away. It's like, is that the extent of religion in Japan? I'm like, oh, what are you doing tomorrow morning at 5 a.m.? They're like, no plans. So I brought them to the temple for the meditation, and they were really touched. And but I think that's there is that side of Japan that a typical traveler isn't going to see. So being able to share that with people, I think it gives them that much more meaning for their trip. And uh, yeah, it's kind of a pain waking up at 5 a.m. to go do it, but seeing how much it meant to them, it's obviously worth the effort.
no, definitely. And I find that if I have a chance to meditate or do yoga or something, or just be calm and quiet for a little while, there's so many payoffs during the day. Like you
Uh,
notice things more. You think
Uh,
about things more. So, in terms of having a great trip to Japan, having Zazen meditation inside your trip would definitely make you appreciate things more. I think it's an awesome thing. All visitors should do.
yeah. And it's
I,
you hear about what
yeah.
is it, Koyasan and Nara being so popular for people having to do the zazen, and obviously that would be excellent, but you don't necessarily have to do it at that scale. You could just do it at a local temple here, and that way you can get one-on-one communication with the actual monk. And uh, yeah, I think either in Koyasan or here in a local temple here in the boonies in Nagano, it's either way, it's definitely
Yeah.
valuable.
We also have along the Seito Naikai, we'll have some temples that do zazen or meditation. I think it's a great, should be in every region, should have at least one area that does it. I
Mm.
love how your inn is so flexible about food and
Ah,
linking to local food areas and promoting local eateries, as well as catering to vegans. So that's
yes.
such a big hurdle in Japan. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the vegan issue is our chef struggled with it at the beginning, but we were fortunate to have a few vegans that gave us some tips on things that work well with Japanese food. So our chef is able, and then a lot of the things in Nagano, the mushrooms and the vegetables and things, and I think it relates really well to vegan cuisine. And so our chef got used to that. We've also really struggled with gluten-free. Uh, there's just in practically everything. There's a little bit of flour, wheat flour. So we've been able to put together the ingredients to be able to provide a gluten-free kaiseki dinner as well. The one thing we really are still trying to figure out what to do with is halal. Halal, the is Muslim official cooking, because it basically requires a whole other kitchen in order to do it really properly. So we haven't been able to. We're happy to do pork-free and alcohol-free uh, meals. So we've seen that some, I don't know. I mean, I think with any religion, you have your real strict Orthodox people and you have your not so strict people. So for the not so strict uh, Muslims, we can provide, pork free and alcohol free. But yeah, our chef struggled with it at the beginning, but his whole deal is he wants to share Japanese kaiseki cuisine with as many people as he can. So uh, he's able to adjust. And then our town too. Uh, there's a couple different uh, really heritage type of cuisine. The food here in Nagano. One is soba, and as long as usually you have the dashi, the soup base to dip the soba into. So that's tricky because there's usually some fish-based dashi in there. So with the soba, we've kind of had to switch to like using just like salt or something. Um, and then there's something called the oyaki. They're like dumplings, and inside is eggplant or different vegetables. So that's 100% vegan already. Um, then there's another a local just here in our based in our vicinity. We take these really spicy daikon radishes and grate it and shiboru, squeeze the broth out, and you add miso paste to that, and you dip udon noodles into it neat. It's called Oshibori Udon, uh, and that's totally vegan as well. So there's already some local foods that, without even having to do anything, they're already vegan. So um, that's been it's made it a lot easier to uh, facilitate the visitors from overseas that are vegan.
Yeah. It's such a big hurdle. And even when I talk to the mountain monks, organizer in Yamagata. He's talking
Yeah.
about how shojin yori, which is usually vegan, is
Right.
actually they use fish dashi in their
Oh.
shoji. So it's confusing, and I think a lot of visitors they really feel uneasy about coming to Japan because it's so hard. So it's so wonderful to see how easy you're making it and how you're acting as that bridge. And of course, if it's vegan, everybody can eat it, right?
Right.
If you have that vegan dashi, you can add fish, you can add meat, you can add whatever, right? So
Right.
it's such a
Right.
great base to have. We have a comment from Paul Walsh. Thanks for joining, Paul. That is great that you're working with staff to diversify your menus. I would love to try this. Oyaki is delicious. The udon sounds yum. Thanks.
Yeah. The Oyaki, the restaurant here too, it's a lot of touristy places where you see Oyaki, you're like, how many days old is this? But the restaurant here in town, you order it, she grills it right then and there, so it comes piping hot. It goes really good with a cold beer. Uh, Paul-san, I highly suggest you come and check it out.
Yeah, that's great. And you also, in terms of flexibility of hospitality, you also offer rooms without meals, and this is kind of unusual for traditional inns in Japan, which I think that's how they make most of their money, is having the meals attached to the room. Is that right? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's even now a lot of the inns in town, the whole setup is, the accommodation with the two meals. But even within this industry, there's been a push for separating the meals with the accommodation and inns. I mean, like even for us, we have a chef, we have his salary, uh, we have to pay the salary whether or not guests have meals with accommodation or not. So there is definitely a financial reason that we highly suggest guests to have meals. But especially for guests from overseas, a lot of them stay 3 or 4 nights. And our chef's kaiseki style dinner, he has an A menu and a B menu. But then when you get to the third or fourth night, he's like, what do we do here? So there's, as far as our operation, it makes sense also to recommend guests to have our kaiseki meal maybe one night during their stay, but we are very fortunate in having a great collection of restaurants within easy walking distance from our inn. So it's a good match for us. And one thing you got to be careful though is some towns, like our particular town, we have 28 inns and hotels here in our town, and we have 100 restaurants. Some onsen areas, they're more remote, and maybe there aren't any restaurants nearby. So if you don't take a meal at the inn, there's no really other options. So I guess my suggestion for people interested in staying at a Japanese ryokan, find out what's around before you decide whether or not you want to have meals there or not. Then also the kaiseki style dinner, it's really special. I think a lot of people have when they think of Japanese food, they think of sushi and tempura. The nice thing about the kaiseki style meal is you have such a wide variety of, you got your steamed dish, you got the seasonal dish, you got the vinegar dish, you got the hot pot, you got the grilled dish. There's just a wide variety of the different types of Japanese cuisine within that one meal. So it's a great exposure to the breadth and the depth of Japanese cuisine.
Definitely. That looks great. You talked a little bit about changes you've made during coronavirus to make the hotel more accommodating to social distance. Talking about changing the baths or changing the room structure. Can you talk about how you've tried to adapt? There's such a difficult time
It's
for.
very difficult. It's we're for some of our rooms, we've got them set up where we'll, instead of having a guest every night, we'll open it up so it airs out for a whole 24 hours in between guests. Um, then as far as the baths, with our two indoor baths, we've had the men's bath and ladies' bath. Uh, the era that the baths were made, it was the era of mass tourism. It was mostly groups of mostly guys, so the ladies' bath is kind of an afterthought. But nowadays, it's our guests are like half and half, men and women. So uh, initially last year, our big goal was to do a major construction project and rework the ladies' baths would be a lot bigger. But then thinking about with Corona, do people really want a a bigger bath and be surrounded by a whole bunch of people, or would it be better to have individual baths, smaller baths, but individual baths? So instead of increasing the size of the ladies' indoor bath, we added a second outdoor bath to the ladies' bath. So now the indoor one is a little on the smaller side, but there's two different types of outdoor baths that they can enjoy. So we went down to Shigaken to a town called Shigaraki, and they have a famous style of ceramic pottery there that the clay that they use is strong enough to support the bath. So we have a Shigaraki outdoor bath now. That was my big
Wow.
project last year, was getting that and doing a little DIY work to do this around and make a little pocket garden for it. Yeah, always, always things to improve.
How do you see? We've got about 5 more minutes. Any plans for this year as you move forward? Are you going to try more of the cycle tours or anything?
Yeah, the cycling tour, my, I'm getting more and more active in our town's cycling committee, and we're looking at, I don't know, long-term goal would be to set up a type of shared bicycle type thing so people could rent a bike at the train station and then drop it off here at the Onsen town and go to we have some really cool terraced rice fields nearby, and it'd be great to be able to go to the different places and just drop the bikes off. And so long-term goal is to set that type of system up for our town. As far as the with Corona, the after Corona thing, getting back to the baths, right now we have 12 guest rooms and they all have private toilets, but none have their own shower or bath. So my goal for this year will be to build a shower and an outdoor bath for hopefully two or three of our guest rooms. That way, guests will have the peace of mind of being able to bathe in their room and not have to be around other people in the common baths. So lots of projects.
Yeah.
I don't know. We've this whole Corona thing. We had a great November thanks to the whole GoTo travel deal, and then December GoTo got cut off and is supposed to start here in mid-January, but that's being postponed, and so we've had a lot of cancellations for our January bookings. So I don't know. It's scary. Can't quite see the daylight at the end of the proverbial tunnel yet, but I don't know. I just hope that once the whole vaccination gets scaled up and people can start traveling again, that will the improvements we're making on the end will be a good draw for bringing people to the area.
Well, it sounds like you're using this downtime in a perfect way to build facilities that you're going to need in the future for the future of travel after Corona. But man, what a difficult time for the tourism industry, especially hospitality and hotels, I would say, are particularly hard hit.
It's scary. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So your area, I heard in the NHK video, usually has 600,000 visitors a year.
Uh-huh.
But what was 2020 like? How many were?
Yeah, I have
Probably
the
a lot
data
less. Yeah.
upstairs, but well, it was actually starting at the end of 2019. We had Typhoon 19 came and a lot of the bullet trains stopped running, a lot of the expressways were closed down, so that was a big hit. And then just as we're starting to recover, then Corona hit, and starting February, March of 2020. So I would say it was probably 2020 was probably about half of what a typical year was. And then 2021 so far, yeah, it's I'm using the eraser more than I'm using the pencil end of the pencil for our reservation book. So
Yeah. That's hard, and I think this year is going to be really hard still. It doesn't seem like it's going to lift too soon. One of the
yeah.
things I've heard that you're doing to transition, trying something new, is you're making cookies. Is that right?
Right. So I mean, I've been making cookies as our tea suite for the guests when they check in, and I was able to partner up with a local kitchen that has a section that's got the health department's approval for baking. And so we've been uh, making the cookies there and selling them on our website. So uh, trying to do what we can do. Yeah.
Well, it's the whole idea of keep trying new ideas and seeing if you can collaborate with other people in your area, support each other, try to build new facilities that might be in use after. One of the things Derek in Yamagata is doing as well is collaborating with local businesses similar to what you're doing, but creating local videos or local interview podcasts and things,
Uh,
which you can help build the appeal of your town. And this is
uh,
this is one of the things you also mentioned in your podcast about how the old image of your area is kind of seedy, but
right.
through your work you've been able to build a more ecotourism, vegan friendly, visit with, understand the geisha culture, like more engaging, a little bit more PG
Yeah. Family
type of
friendly.
image. So this kind of branding development is definitely something you can be working on during this low time. I know it's hard, but please don't give up. I look forward to coming and visiting you someday.
Yeah, it'd be an honor to have you come. This was a real treat to be able to be interviewed by you. The person that introduced you to me. I was thanks to her. I was just looking at more of your videos, and you're you're very impressive what you're doing. I hope you keep
Aw,
up your
thank
good work
you.
as on your end too.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and your vision and also your hurdles, because I think a lot of people around Japan and around the world can really identify with this coronavirus time difficulty. But yeah, please don't give up, and thank you for all your hard work. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Joy-san.
Thank you, everybody, for joining today and listening. And tomorrow we're talking with Thomas Klepper, who's an organic farmer in the Hiroshima area. He's going to talk to us about winter organic farming and give you some tips about some plants you might grow inside your home during the winter time. So please join us tomorrow. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.